me. My relationship with my parents was hell for me. You know, there was a lot of things that I couldn't talk to about them. Like, I couldn't tell them like, hey, you know, like a boy has a crush on me, or I have a crush on this boy. Like, I don't know what to tell him. Like, what should I do? You know, I couldn't have those conversations with my parents. You know, people always talk about like, oh, my relationship with my parents is great, or like my parents did this, my parents did that. Like, I did with this, my parents. And I'm like sitting here like, I can't relate, you know? Like, I never had those parents. And it was just this big mistrust, you know? High school was hell. My parents were hell. And that led me up to not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, you know? In high school, took cosmetology classes, basic courses. And, you know, from doing that, I kind of had a sense of what I wanted to do with my life. Or I knew that this is what I wanted to do. But the thing was, my parents tried manipulating me into believing like, oh, stylists don't get enough money, they don't do good, you know, they're not financially stable, you know, you're going to be working yourself to death and stuff like that. So, you know, they manipulated me. And the most fucked up thing is that, like, I got offered a scholarship. I got offered a scholarship by the manager, and I had to deny it. I had to, like, tell her straight up, like, I'm sorry, I can't. Like, as much as I, you know, love doing this, and, you know, my basic courses, you know, I'm doing all this, I can't. Like, my parents won't let me. Like, I'm sorry, it's not the right time. And so I ended up, like, rejecting the scholarship. And my parents wanted me to go to community college. And, you know, I'm gonna be real here. Like, I do not regret community college. Honestly, Iowa Central, Fort Dodge, best community college ever. Just saying, hey, my opinion. But I don't regret going to community college. But sometimes I ask myself, like, what if I had stuck up to my parents and ended up doing cosmetology instead of what I'm doing now? Like, what if, you know? And so my parents wanted me to go to community college, and, you know, during that time, my mental health was not in a good state. I was arguing with my parents, and when they told me, you know, if you don't go to community college, then we're gonna make you work at the pork plant, you know, with your mom, you're gonna have to pay the bills and stuff like that. They were just threatening me with all this stuff, you know? It's like, I don't want to go to college, but at the same time, like, you won't let me be a cosmetologist, so it's like, what do I do, you know? So I ended up going to community college, but I told my parents straight up, like, hey, I'm going to community college. I want to be far away from you as possible. Like, there was the option of going to Iowa Central in Storm Lake, but knowing how much I wanted to be away from my parents, I told them, I just want to be far away from you guys. I'm going to college in Fort Dodge so I can get the full college experience. And I told them, if I can't get that, then I'm not going to college, and I'm sure as hell not going to work for the pork plant. All right? And so they're like, fine, that's agreeable. We can agree with that. Went to community college in Fort Dodge. Best college in the world, girl. Still, again, my opinion. And, you know, Fort Dodge was great for me. It was an escape, you know. I call it my Hannah Montana moment, you know. Like, at home, I could be Miley Cyrus, but, like, out here in the world, like, it could be Hannah Montana. Like, she was living her best life, girl, yes. And, you know, in community college, I would wear makeup. I would, you know, express myself. I got to be who I wanted to be. And as I started reaching the end of community college, I was at a roadblock. I was going to ask myself, like, what am I going to do after this? Do I go back to cosmetology school, or, you know, what do I do with my life? And so Iowa Central has this program called TRIO, or Talent Search. And the advisors there would, you know, motivate me to do good. Like, before in high school, like, my GPA was about, like, 2.4, 2.3 at the most. Like, I wasn't a smart kid in high school, But like in community college, like your girl was getting like a 3.5, 3.6. Like she was doing good. Like her grades went from to whoa. So I was doing really good. And my tree advisors, they're like, you should really go to university. Like you should really go. Like we can see you attending a university. Like kid, you got it. Like don't ever settle for less. Like don't sell yourself short. Like you got something, kid. Like go for it. Like go to the university. And at first I was like, what? Like I was like, who? Like I didn't even think about going. I didn't even know what a university, like believe it or not, I didn't know what a university was. So I was like, should I go to university? Should I not? Because I don't know. Like honest to God, I didn't know what I wanted to be. And I ended up taking a college visit to Iowa State, and Iowa Central. This is my community college at Iowa Central. The biggest demographic there is either white or black, right? So I didn't hang out with the white kids a lot because, like, from all that I witnessed in high school, I was like, I don't want to be part of that crowd. So I started hanging out a lot with the black folks, and it was good because I got to know like about racism. Like they don't teach you, like in small schools, they don't teach you about white privilege. They don't teach about racism. They don't teach you none of this stuff. Like it's all like blind. Like they won't tell you this stuff. And I think that's part of the reason why we have so much racist incidents in Iowa, because they don't teach this stuff in small schools. So basically, I started to get to know a lot about reverse racism, if reverse racism is a thing, because that's what these white people would believe, is that reverse racism exists. And I'm thinking to myself, like, it's one thing to generalize and stereotype, but it's another thing to be denied service of your color, being asked about your immigration service, being denied services. It's like, yeah, reverse racism exists. Like, y'all white people are blind. So I went to Iowa State. I ended up going to Iowa State. I took a college visit there, and the woman who was doing the college visit was a woman of color. And my first question was like, how is your Latino community? Like, do you all have a Latino community here? And she's like, girl, do we have a Latino community here? Girl, you're gonna love it. Like, we have so much Latinos here. We have Puerto Ricans. We have like Ecuadorians. Like, we have Mexicans. Like, we have the whole spiel. And I was like, sold. So I went to Iowa State, and honestly, like, I honestly love the school because of the amount of diversity, because they had a lot of Latino, and like growing up, the Latino kids wouldn't want to hang out with me. So it was different that I got to hang out with my own culture. Like, I met a grad student, her name is Popani, and just being around her, this was in the TRIO program too, Iowa State's TRIO program. They introduced me to her, and I, just fell in love with the whole program. She started teaching me about like racism and Latino culture, like how racism, like for darker skinned Latinos, they have a harder time in society, and like I wasn't aware of that stuff, So she started teaching me a lot about racism, about toxic machismo, like all this stuff about Latinos, and I'm grateful that I was able to find this program, but I'm also grateful that I got to learn a lot and grow. I'm grateful that I was able to get back in touch with my nationality, with my ethnicity, because there would be times where I would be embarrassed, I would be ashamed of telling people that I was Mexican, because I forever believed that I was just a white kid, or everyone saw me as a white dude and not as Mexican. So that's what I believed my whole life. So I'm grateful that I went to Iowa. I'm grateful that I'm going to Iowa State, because I'm just so in touch with myself. I'm more proud of myself, and I'm more comfortable with myself.